I am just so blessed and honored to introduce this gentleman. He makes a difference in the world, not only in my life. I see him every day, whether he realizes that or not. His postings on Facebook, and he is very clever. He is a Buddhist monk, and he works in Los Angeles and helps youth and people that are in trouble, and he explains so many things with the wisdom and compassion. And it's my honor today to introduce to you Kusala Bhikshu.
Thank you, Maggie. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Well, my friend Andy Howe is going to help me out today. And before we get started, any merit that I might get from this presentation, I'd like to dedicate to Walter Trout. He's got a couple of health issues right now, and may the merit go to his good health and well-being in the weeks and months to come. He's a good guy. So this is a song, 1965. Some of you were here. And it is a song about the world. And I was talking to Andy about the song, and the world doesn't seem to change, just goes through cycles. And it's called Eve of Destruction.
Barry McGuire.
Barry McGuire, P.J. Sloan wrote this song. And I'm thinking, you know, when I was 16, listening to this song on AM radio, it got me to thinking and hoping that the world would be a better place when I got to be this age. And the world is just a place. So, you know, so I changed a few words and made it more 2014. And here we go. Eastern world is exploding. There is violence flaring, bullets loading, old enough to kill. Not revolting, now you don't believe in war. What's that gun you're toting? Even the Jordan River's got bodies floating, and you tell me over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Can't you understand what I'm trying to say? Can't you feel the fear I'm feeling today? If the button is pushed, there's no running away. No one to save with the world in the grave. Take a look around you, boy, bound to scare you, boy, and you tell me over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. I'm so mad, blood's a-coagulating, just sitting here contemplating. You can twist the truth, no regulation, man. A handful of senators don't pass legislation. Marches alone can't fix immigration when human respect is disintegrating. This whole crazy world is just too frustrating, and you tell me over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. lives deep inside you. Take a look around. Kindness can guide you. You can live here for 4 days in space. But when you return, it's the same old place. Pounding of the drums and the pride and disgrace. You can bury your dead, but don't leave a trace. Hate your next door neighbor, but don't forget to say grace. You tell me over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Thank you. You did it.
See you afterwards.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. That was fun. So my talk today is wisdom or compassion. And is one better than the other? Is one easier to find than the other? Do we even need them? And after listening to that song, you might say, yeah, wisdom and compassion would be a good thing. The world might be a better place. So my question was, but where does this stuff come from? Where do we get wisdom from? Is it from reading a book or living a life? Where do we get compassion from? Is it from our own suffering, the suffering of others? So I applied Buddhist meditation to this question and came up with this. We can find a path to wisdom in Buddhist meditation. And if you follow something called samatha meditation and vipassana meditation, what happens is you have these deep insights into the true nature of reality, which is the wisdom a Buddhist would apply to the world and to themselves. It's a triad: anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anicca, impermanence, flux. Things are always changing, always in a state of becoming, but never achieving anything. And I thought to myself, this is really weird. Everything is always changing. Why? Could it be that it's necessary for life to exist? Gary Zukov, years ago, wrote a book called The Dancing Woolly Masters. And he talked about quantum physics. Now, I had never really heard of quantum physics until I read this book. And I thought, this is really a trip. Because what happens is things keep getting smaller and smaller, and those tend to be the building blocks of our reality and our universe. Now, when I grew up, back in the old days, the atoms were sort of like the smallest thing, and they were like the building blocks of everything. And so I imagine looking at the desk in 4th grade thinking, wow, this is just made of atoms. How cool is that? Then they found neutrons and protons, and then they found quarks, and then they kept finding the smallest of the small of the smallest of the small, and they came up with wave particle. They came up with a process. It's not even an event. It's a process. And this process continues, and that's why we have life. And I thought to myself, did it all start with the Big Bang? I don't know what happened before the Big Bang, but all of a sudden there was a Big Bang, and everything was set into motion, and it continues today. And I'm in motion, and I look at myself today, and I look at myself 20 years ago, and I see a bunch of impermanence. I used to have hair like this guy. So I'm thinking this leads to the second deep insight we get from Buddhist meditation. Dukkha, life is ultimately unsatisfactory because of impermanence. There's nothing to hold on to, no place to stand that doesn't change. You can work really hard at building something and creating something, and by the time it's finished, it's already being destroyed because of impermanence. We never ultimately achieve anything, because there's no place for us to stand and say, wait, let me just experience this for a moment. I want to feel like I did something. And yet that moment never happens. So I started to think about moments. And I said, how many moments are there in a minute? You know how many? As many as you want. They don't exist. It's not a duration. It's a concept. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, no matter how hard I try to solidify the world around me and make it into something, it always turns out to be nothing, because it's always in a state of flux and change. And that's why I feel the way I do. The older I get, and I want to say April of this year, I am going to get my Medicare. I made it. You know, when that song was written in '65, I'm thinking, Medicare? What the hell is that? And now it's like a couple months away, and I'm going, whoa, I made it. But it also means that I only got a couple good years left. So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, as is life. Life is a blessing and a curse. Think of the lotus flower. The lotus flower needs to be rooted in mud in order to exist and bloom with the most beautiful flowers. If you take the lotus flower and put it into clean water, it dies. And so we are faced with the same dilemma. We need this earth, which is not a very cool place to be some of the time. Extreme temperatures, 85 here, 85 below in Minnesota. You go, really? You know? And then the ice comes and the power stops, and you go, whoa, freezing to death. And then you have all the other things that make our life difficult, like food and water. Pretty soon we're going to be out of water, you know? But they say, try to conserve. I'm thinking, don't tell us to conserve, make us conserve. Fine us. We don't know how important water is because we've always had it. But one day we're not going to have any water, and it'll be more valuable than oil. People will be hoarding it, selling it on the market, you know. Hey, I got a quart of good water, you know. Of course, that's what they're doing already, aren't they, in those plastic bottles. So. And then everything that's born on this earth has to die. Has to die. I had it happen this morning in my backyard. I'm feeding the cats. Bell tower, Buddhist environment. All of a sudden, Rain the cat spots a hummingbird. And I thought to myself, a cat will never catch a hummingbird. They're much too fast. She caught the hummingbird. After I fed her, she caught the hummingbird. And it was dead. And I'm thinking to myself, what a way to start the day. Death. And then I tried to pick it up, and she growled at me. Like, this is mine. You can't have it. But she turned away for one moment. I covered it. I got it. I gave it a burial in the trash bin. May you have a happy and fulfilled rebirth. Not as a hummingbird, but something else. And I wanted to be angry at Rain, but it was in her nature to kill the bird. And so people are saying, hey, think about all the birds that are killed by cats. Maybe we should ban cats. And I'm thinking, hey, think about all the birds that are killed by humans. Maybe we should ban humans. How many chickens do we eat every day? Chick-fil-A, Kentucky Fried. Cows are happy about that. But this place is filled with a lot of death and destruction. So a Buddhist would say, this is samsara. This is where birth and death occur. And what happens in between birth and death is just you're either lucky or not so lucky, or it's well-planned or it's not well-planned. But we all know what the ending is going to be, and yet people are surprised. I always cry. Don't you cry when somebody you like dies? And you knew they were going to die. But they're dead now. And you go, whoa, bummer. And then you get Medicare, and then you're next. The third aspect of Buddhist wisdom is called Anata. And this is a really difficult philosophical concept to comprehend. It means we do not exist in the way we think we do, that we are made. They have built us from the ground up as a human being. Our parents taught us how to talk. Our school systems taught us how to think. Our political systems taught us how to vote. And it goes on and on and on. And I thought just the other day, have I ever had an original thought? I haven't. All my thoughts have been based on other people's thoughts. And I thought, how wonderful would it be to have an original thought? But would anybody ever understand what the heck you're talking about if you had an original thought? Or would they just look at you and think, the guy's nuts? What's he talking about? We like to hear things we're familiar with. We like to hear things that make us feel comfortable and give us a sense of security because other people are talking about them too. So I praise artists because artists have decided they don't want to be mainstream. They want to have their own stuff. They want to do it their way. Some of them don't even want to be successful. They just want to be artists. And how cool is that? I'm now reading 1984 for the third time. Starting to see everybody's looking at their screens. They predicted this. I see people walking around, not talking to each other, looking at this screen. They're doing it when they're driving. For a long time, I thought they were looking at their crotch. They're looking at their screens. When do we put the screens down? When do we look at each other again? When do we actually have a conversation? When do we care? So this idea of being someone, being something, is an illusion according to Buddhism. It also is a process, and we are always in process. And it's said every 7 years we are different people. And I would, if somebody wanted my advice and someone was married, I'd say reintroduce yourself to your spouse every 7 years, just to let them know who you are, because you're going to be different. I have some cards. I had some cards made up. If anybody wants one, it's me and the cat, Rain. And the reason I had them made up because I realized I only look like that once. That's the only time you'll ever see me look like that. And after I'm gone, eBay. You'll make a fortune. So how do we put this into context? What do we say? Okay, as I meditate, I see all things are always changing. It leads me to suffer and feel uncomfortable and insecure. And there's not even anybody there to suffer and feel insecure. And yet I feel that way. That's where we go into the wisdom of Buddhism. We apply this model to the world around us, and we're not surprised. We go, yes, of course, it couldn't be any other way. Sure, the bird died. You hated to see it go. You gave it a little burial, but it wasn't going to be any other way because things change. Change leads to discomfort, and there's no one there in charge. No one there in charge. So that's the wisdom aspect. But how about this compassion stuff? And which one is really better? I'm going to close with that. Compassion comes from the third aspect of the Buddhist wisdom, Anata. Compassion comes from not being who you think you are. Compassion comes from not being anything at all. And how does that work? And what are these people talking about? One of my favorite sutras is called the Heart Sutra. And it talks about this at great length. In only 3 paragraphs, it defines what emptiness, true emptiness is. It also defines what true compassion is. And you might be surprised. I'm going to read one paragraph. And it goes like this. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness, not born and not dying, not stained and not pure, not gaining and not losing. Therefore, within emptiness, there is no form, no sensation, perception, volition, or consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or dharmas, no realm of sight till we come to no realm of consciousness, no ignorance and no ending of ignorance, till we come to no old age and death and no ending of old age and death, no suffering, origination, extinction, or path, no wisdom and no attainment, with nothing to attain. Now, when I first read this, I said, what the hell? Because it made no sense at all. It was only after years of meditation and sore knees that I finally started to figure this thing out. What they're saying is there is a relative truth. And we all know that. That's our intellect, and that's how we define the world around us. But in order to have a relative truth, you need two. You need old age, and you need no old age. You got to have two in order to be able to judge and critique and have an intellectual understanding. But there's also another form of wisdom that isn't intellectual understanding, but it is intuitive knowing. That can't actually be described, it can only be experienced. And this gets in the way if you're trying to tell somebody about the experience of ultimate reality you just had, and yet you try putting it into words and it fails completely, and that's why we have poetry. And to be honest with you, poetry always makes me confused because it doesn't really have a beginning and an end. I always seem to come in just to the middle in poetry. And there it is, and I'm going, okay, but what does this mean? How do I apply it? And it was the same feeling I had when I read the Heart Sutra the first time. What does it mean? How do I apply it? The Heart Sutra is saying there are two sides of the coin. There are heads and tails. But the Heart Sutra also says that's not the ultimate reality we're talking about. We are talking about the coin that we can't see because we can only see heads or tails. We never get the chance to hold and see and smell and touch or taste the coin because it is ultimate reality and has no sides. You see how difficult this stuff is? And how long it took me to try to figure this stuff out, and then how long it took me to try to talk about it. And now I'm here saying it's the coin that's real, and it's the sides that are an illusion. And this is where our compassion comes from. And then you say, but how could that lead to compassion? How could all this emptiness talk, almost nihilistic, actually, how could all this lead to genuine, heartfelt compassion? Now, somebody talked about sympathy the other day in a conversation I was having, and sympathy is not compassion. Sympathy is saying to yourself, I'm glad it's not me. That's what sympathy is. Compassion is, I'm next. And when you see the homeless guy or the guy with cancer or the guy who hasn't eaten, and you say, I'm next, you can be of service. If you say, I'm glad it's not me, you walk away. So compassion is an activity. It's not a mind state. Love and kindness, according to Buddhism, is the intention that drives your speech and action and manifests in the world as compassionate activity. So when you say, I have compassion and don't do anything, no, you have love and kindness. Enjoy the Olympics. But the compassion guy is going to be off the couch into the streets helping because they know they're next. That's the compassion guy. And yet, as I struggled with the Heart Sutra and I struggled with this idea of not existing in any specific way and always in a state of process, I said to myself, is this truly where compassion comes from? And it is, because you come to a realization that you are interconnected and interdependent with all creatures and things because you do not exist independently. You are empty of independent existence. You are always connected. And when you see a group of people playing different instruments, creating harmony, what you're seeing is the reality of connection and community. It's right there. It's beyond words. You just say, that's a great song, or that guy really played a good lead, or he's a solid rhythm player. But what they were doing is they were creating one out of the many. And maybe not even one. Maybe they were creating community out of the many because they didn't lose their diversity. They could all play different instruments, and yet they came together in a unique and special way that we can all hear and feel and experience, but it is difficult to define. So as I look at the world, and I try to be separate because it's really much safer to be separate from all this crap out there, I can't do it. Because I've been meditating too long, and now I just keep seeing myself connected to this and to that, and it brings me no happiness or joy at all. What it brings me is sadness and more work to do. Somebody said, you must be proud having a website. It must be nice to have all these people finding you. And I said, well, yeah, but then they always invite me to do stuff. So I'm continually doing stuff, and I tell you what, the older I get, the less I want to do. Sometimes I just want to sit and do nothing, you know? So next week I'm speaking at the Lutheran high school. I'm speaking at a Catholic high school. How cool is that? I was invited by a Jewish high school to speak. Busy guy, going out there, talking to everybody, hoping they hear what I have to say, hoping they understand what I have to say, creating community, talking about love, kindness, all working together. And then we all die. All that work, all those hours on the website. So why do I do it? I do it because I'm next. I'm standing in line. I'm getting closer to the front of the line every year. So I'm busy. I'm busy. And hopefully after all my work is done and all my talks are given and all my guitar playing is finished, I will be able to die with a smile on my face. Going, you know, I did the best I could. I did as much as I could. There was no way to ever save the world. But maybe one or two people started to think about the world a little differently because of what I said or did. And that's probably good enough. And then I'll be reborn again to suffer, to get old, to get sick, and to die one more time. Until finally I have enough time to work on myself and achieve nirvana and never have to come back again. But every time I look out into the world, I see all these people still suffering. I don't have the time for myself. I got to keep that phone on and the email working because people want to hear stuff. They want to hear about life in another way. They want to hear about the joys and sorrows in a realistic way. And if for whatever reason they're not suffering right now, I would say to them, it's just a matter of time. So the answer to the big question, which is better, wisdom or compassion? The answer is, it is a tie. It was a long journey to get there. To cap off the journey, Andy and I have decided to do some blues.
Yeah, your talk kind of gave me the blues.
After a talk like that, what other kind of music would we play?
Your talk kind of gave me the blues. I feel better if we play a little.
Absolutely. This is my new harmonica. This is called the Big Six. It only has 6 holes, not 10. And I thought to myself, what a challenge.
And your guitar only has 4 strings.
And my guitar has 4 strings. I'm into simplicity and renunciation.
You are downsizing, getting ready.
I'm getting ready. So here we go. A little blues in the key of G.